Hello, this is Jennifer Vanderbeek with scrapsoflife.com, and I am here to bring you a project today using BoBunny papers, and we're going to make a sympathy card. Now, I am going to start with one of these pattern papers. These are from the Spring Garden line, and I am going to fussy cut this little bird that's in one of these cubes right here, and that is going to be part of the focal point of our card. Now, all of the materials used will be listed down in the description of this video. Okay, now with the bird cut out, I'm going to take 3 of the other pattern papers, and I've got a pretty dark purple that I'm going to be using as my card base. These are double-sided papers, so once I create the card, I'll actually be putting white cardstock inside the card, so it will, I'll be able to write my message there without the vivid pattern getting in the way. But I think that this purple looks, appropriately somber for the condolence card that I'm going to be sending a friend of mine who just lost a family member. And one of the other papers I'm using here, I don't know if these are supposed to be cherry blossoms or dogwoods. I'm kind of leaning dogwood, but your guess is as good as mine. And then finally I have this paper that I'm thinking, to me it looks like waving grass blowing in the wind kind of thing. I've cut panels from each of those, and now I'm going to use those panels that are the size of the full front of my card to decide which of these Spellbinders dies will be the right size. And I am going to cut both of the grass pattern and the flower pattern papers together with that, and you'll see why in a minute. And then I decided that, there seems to be enough room that if I grab the next size up, maybe I can create a mat. And yep, looks like it'll fit. So I'll cut my 2 pattern papers with the smaller of the 2 scalloped oval dies, and then I will cut the larger one out of some white cardstock, and I'm going to secure it with some post-it tape just to keep things from wiggling around too much, since we are dealing with a smaller piece of paper. And I'm just going to run these through my Sizzix Big Shot. And punch them out. Ta-da! Okay, so now I know I have these 2 pattern papers that seem like they'd cover one another up, but my goal is to create a bit of a scene, and I'm going to use one of these Lawn Fawn, I believe this is the Stitched Hillside dies, and I'm going to decide where I want my horizon to be. And I decided I wanted it a little off center, just to be interesting, and I ran that through the Big Shot again. And so now I have the floral paper, I'm going with dogwood, my hillside made out of the grass paper, and then my little fussy cut bird. And that's going to be the main focal point of our card. Now see, there's that pattern I was talking about on the back of my card base paper, and it's very pretty, so I'm going to make sure that when I cut my interior pieces, the white pieces, that I cut them a little bit smaller just so that the border of that pattern shows. That way it just doesn't look like I'm trying to cover it up completely, because that would be a waste. Now I'm going to use these BoBunny sentiment stamps, and I'm going to use the With Sympathy one and just pop it onto my acrylic block here, and I'm going to stamp that with Versamark ink and use the gold embossing powder. Now if you see on the right side of the screen there, you can see that I already did this once and I screwed it up because I did not use a powder bag. And so it got a little smudgy, and I tried to fix it and it didn't work, so I'm like, you know what, it's just easier to recut it. And when I see, if you compare the two, you'll see just how much difference one of those like anti-static or powder bags really makes. And so I am going to use my heat gun to emboss this. This is using Imagine Crafts gold embossing powder. And in just a flash, it will be done. And my card is starting to take shape. Now, I wanted the matte. I wanted something between my layered papers and the background, but I wasn't really feeling the white so much. So I've got my Imagine Crafts Creative Medium in metallic gold and my palette knife, and I'm just using another piece of white paper as kind of a background so I don't get it all over my craft mat. I am going to just spread some of the Creative Medium onto the edges of my large scalloped oval. Doesn't matter if the center is blank because all that's going to be covered up. And then I'm going to use the palette knife to kind of release it from the backing paper. And then I'm going to use my heat gun to speed up the drying process. Now, not only am I impatient, but I like to usually take the texture paste past just the dry point. I like to heat it just a little bit longer and let it start to bubble and ripple a little bit to add a little bit more texture to it. Now I'm using a Helmar Quick Fix Permanent Adhesive Roller to put my layers together. Getting the grass lined up, and of course those little scalloped ovals, you got to make sure you get them lined up just right. And then add my bird as well. And now I decided that I wanted to do a little bit more. The bird was blending into the background a little bit, and it just needed a little more oomph. So I am using the VersaMark embossing marker here, and there's a brush tip and a bullet tip. I'm using the brush tip right here, and I am going along the outline of the chest of the bird, the body of the bird, and also coloring in his eye and parts of his wing with the embossing marker. And then I'm going to spread on a little bit more of the gold embossing powder and see how I like that. Oh, always save that excess. Don't want to waste it. Now I am going to hit the layers with the heat gun and then bring it away so that I don't overheat the piece and affect the glue that's underneath. And so far I'm liking it, but I'm like, you know what, we can do a little bit more. So I'm going to go back in with the brush tip of the embossing marker, the VersaMark marker, and I am just going to make some little marks on the centers of the flowers there. And you can see them a little bit better. They're standing out. And I'm gonna work in sections, do a cluster of flowers, add a little bit of more embossing powder, and repeat as needed until I get to the point where I feel like I've got enough gilding on there. I don't want to overdo it, but because of course the VersaMarker is clear, it's easy to lose track of what you've done. And I like how that turned out. Everything's embossed, and so now I'm going to add it to my background. So the gold embossing powder is like this antique gold. It's this really deep, rich gold. And then the creative medium is a much brighter gold. So we've got a two-tone gold going on here. And now the card could be finished here, but no, I decided I wanted to add a little bit more. And so I'm going to take some twine, just natural colored twine, and trim some from the roll I was using. And I am just going to wrap it about 2/3 up the card. I'm not so much worried about tying a bow or something. I just want to add a little bit more interest to the background of the card. And then I'm going to use my Quick Fix permanent adhesive runner from Helmar to keep the knot in place so it doesn't slip around, and to secure the tails, which are going to peek out from underneath. And then I'm going to use my Helmar Zap Dots dimensional adhesive, and so that I can pop up that layered centerpiece, and again add a little bit more interest to the card front. And that's it. That's our card. I hope you enjoyed this. Please check out the notes below, give it a like and a thumbs up.